it's Whitney Owens here. Hope y'all are doing well. I am surviving this quarantine and giving you helpful tips as we go through this to talk more about how to manage your marriage during the COVID-19 crisis. I'm one of the therapists over at Water's Edge Counseling, and the focus this week has been on being with our spouses, our significant others, and how to have healthy communication during this time. So one of my favorite people to turn to when we're talking about communication within our relationships, and especially in our marriage relationships or romantic relationships, is John Gottman. And he has a book called The 7 Principles of a Healthy Marriage. And you can use that even if you're not married or with your significant other. And he can tell you pretty much, I believe I'm looking here at my stats, within the first few minutes of any conversation or argument with spouses, he can tell with at least 95% accuracy if your relationship is going to make it and if your discussion is going to end in a good way or a bad way. It says here 96% of the time, the way a discussion starts predicts the way it will end. So John Gottman has this thing called the Love Lab, and it's in Seattle. And he puts couples together and he monitors how they act over a weekend, and he can pretty much tell them with very high accuracy, it's like over 90% accuracy, if their relationship will end in divorce or not, all based on communication. So he's got some really great stuff in his book, 7 Principles to a Healthy Marriage, that I think you should check out. But let me go ahead and give you some tips here, right? Okay, so 96% of the time, you can tell if a discussion is going to end well or not based on the very beginning. One partner begins a discussion with what we call a harsh startup. That would be being negative, being accusatory. The conversation is ultimately going to be doomed. And on the other hand, when one partner begins a discussion with a soft startup, more likely the conversation is going to end well. So let's talk about what a harsh startup really is. He identifies these as the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Okay? So the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, his quote here is, usually these 4 horsemen clip-clop into the heart of a marriage in the following order: criticism, contentment, defensiveness, and stonewalling. So criticism is different than complaints, because one partner can have a certain complaint about his or her spouse, and a complaint is just normal about a behavior. A criticism attacks the actual character of a person. So let me give you an example for this. A complaint would be, you should have told me earlier that you were too tired for dinner. I'm disappointed that you didn't come eat dinner with us. A criticism would be, why are you so selfish? You never have time for your family or to spend time with us, right? So that's more of an attack at the actual character of the person instead of commenting on the action of what they're doing. And so a criticism is always going to lead to a negative conversation if you start an argument in this way. Contentment follows criticism, and that's when criticism leads to contentiveness, comments directed at your partner. Some examples are sarcasm, cynicism, name-calling, eye-rolling, sneering, mockery, hostile humor. Contentment is the worst of the 4 horsemen because it communicates a disgust to the other person. As a result, this escalates your conflict. It becomes impossible to solve a problem when the message that's sent to someone else is that you're disgusting, right? So contentment comes out of our criticism over and over and over again, and it says, I really can't stand being around you, right? And your partner feels that. And then the 3rd horseman of the apocalypse, it's defensiveness. So of course, when someone comes at you in this way, the other partner becomes defensive, right? Becoming defensive is a common reaction from contentment, and many people become defensive when they're being criticized. But the problem is that it never helps solve the problem at hand. And Gottman's quote here is, defensiveness is really a way of blaming your partner. It's saying, in effect, the problem isn't me, it's you. And as a result, the problem is not resolved and conflict continues to escalate. And typically, the 4th horseman comes at this moment called stonewalling. This is when the other 3 horsemen, criticism, contentment, and defensiveness, have already made their way into your marriage. Right? Stonewalling does tend to be a little bit more common with men than women. It's a way to avoid feeling flooded. So a lot of times the common thing that we see is the woman or just one of the partners is overwhelmed with emotion and throwing it on the other person, and the other person feels so attacked they don't know what to do, and so they put up that wall and they don't talk, right? I mean, the old time thought of it in the 50s, I guess, would be the woman's upset and sharing her emotions, and the man is sitting with his newspaper not looking up at her, right? The stonewaller ignores the partner and doesn't give a sign of responsiveness, which makes the spouse even more angry. This behavior tends to enter a marriage later, after several years or months, and the couple can have a significant period of a negative override. Gottman says it takes time for the negativity created by the first three horsemen to become overwhelming enough that stonewalling becomes an understandable out. So they feel like that is an out for what's going on. So those are the four horsemen. And then it comes flooding, right? So the flooding is when we're giving a lot of emotions to somebody. Flooding is lots of negativity from your spouse in the guise of criticism or contentment. And it's overwhelming. And then people try to protect themselves by being flooded, by disengaging from the relationship. It's a biological fact that men are more easily overwhelmed in marital conflict than women. And this emotional disengagement can protect one from the intense negativity of their spouse, right? I mean, we all probably feel like we understand that when you feel flooded with any kind of emotion, it's easy to just disengage. And that's what key people are doing in their marriages. And then we notice body language. So the body language will come along with feeling flooded. It naturally, your heart rate goes up, adrenaline is going, blood pressure is higher, and this is going to make you react in a more negative way, right? Creative problem solving is out the window when you're already at this point in an argument. You're left with the most reflexive, least intelligible, sophisticated response in your repertoire, which is fight or flight, right? So you're either going to do the stonewalling or you're going to fight against somebody. And this problem solving discussion leads to one or both partners feeling more flooded and fails. So then we get to the last part of conflict, which is failed repaired relationship. Failed repair attempts. Repair attempts are efforts we make to de-escalate conflict. A repair attempt is the happy couple's secret weapon. This refers to a method to prevent the negative emotions from spiraling out of control. A repair attempt can be a simple gesture, a laugh, a joke, could be a hug. If one partner's feeling flooded, this repair attempt is going to be unsuccessful. So you have to use it early or once emotions have de-escalated. Okay? So all this to say, it started with the harsh startup. So if you find in your relationship that the harsh startup is there, so a criticism, a direct attack, then stop the conversation. Or take a step back and reword and apologize before you continue the conversation, because it's only going to go to a negative place, right? Or you use a repair attempt to try to fix it. An apology, a quick laugh, depending on you as a couple, how that's going to go. But if you can see these horsemen coming into your marriage and into your conflict, then you'll be able to stop that sooner rather than later. So I think this is really helpful for couples. It can tell you pretty quickly if you're going into a bad place. So I encourage you to consider this. And if you're really interested, check out John Gottman's book, The 7 Principles to a Healthy Marriage. We also offer couples counseling over at Water's Edge Counseling. So if you're finding that you're having a lot of conflict, please reach out. We know that within families, one of the biggest indicators of struggles with kids is conflict in the home with parents. So don't let yourself get to that place. Like, call us and we can help you through this time, because we're spending lots of time with our spouses and we want to be able to get you in a good spot. It's good being with you. Thank you for letting me into your ears and into your hearts.